Welcome to From the Pages, and this time we're opening the January 1966 issue of Wrestling Illustrated combined with Girl Wrestling, a magazine that feels less like a promotional piece and more like a pressure valve. This issue is restless. It is dissatisfied. It questions the state of professional wrestling openly, and it allows fans, wrestlers, and editors to argue with one another in print. Nothing here is settled. Everything feels contested. The issue deliberately begins by handing authority to the audience with, "Thank you, Karen," spotlighting a letter from Karen Henderson of Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. Karen's letter is not nostalgic fluff. It is a critique. She argues that wrestling has lost much of its spectator appeal since the late 1950s, and she does not blame the wrestlers first. She blames promoters. She accuses them of relying on internal politics instead of delivering strong, stacked cards. She calls out the slow recycling of stars and the lack of meaningful turnover at the top. She demands legitimate finishes, pinfalls, not referee decisions, as a way to restore credibility. What makes this moment remarkable is that the editors agree with her. They endorse her criticism and invite further discussion, effectively admitting that wrestling's problems are real, structural, and visible to the audience. That sense of frustration and unfinished business flows directly into story behind the picture, titled "The Skunk That Walked Away." This piece reconstructs a violent handicap match in Lake Charles, Louisiana, involving Tony Borne, Killer Karl Kox, Leo Newman, Dick Steinhorn, and the Clawman against Ramon and Al Torres. The backstory is central. Leo Newman had previously split Al Torres' head with a cane, and the Torres brothers demanded a match not for sport, but for retribution. The bout collapses into chaos, with repeated ganging up leading to a disqualification. Technically, the Torres brothers win. Emotionally, no one does. Injuries linger, resentment lingers. The article makes clear that wrestling justice is often procedural, not satisfying. The mailbox section expands the argument outward. Readers debate girl wrestling intensely, especially its presentation in England. Some letters condemn nude photography in girl wrestling as degrading or damaging to the sport's legitimacy. Others defend it as honest, profitable, and reflective of audience demand. Names like Penny Banner, Rita Cortez, and Millie Zeck appear alongside Crusher Lisowski, Vern Gagne, and Gene Kiniski. Readers argue over rankings, complain about the proliferation of world champions, and challenge editorial decisions. What emerges is a portrait of a fan base deeply divided over what wrestling should be: sport, spectacle, morality play, or pure entertainment. Violence and emotion spike and die, you rat fink. A first-person narrative by the Bruiser. This piece abandons journalistic distance entirely. The Bruiser recounts his feud with Bobo Brazil through bloodshed, foreign objects, and personal hatred carried from Chicago to Pittsburgh. The language is confrontational and unapologetic. The article exists to make the reader uncomfortable, reinforcing that in this era, animosity itself is a draw. The hostility spills into daily life, and Gentleman Saul goes looking for trouble. Set in Nashville, Tennessee, the story follows Gentleman Saul Weingeroff and Carl von Bronner confronting Len Rossi at his restaurant. What begins as harassment escalates into violence involving a cane, Rossi's wife intervening with a fork, and police involvement. The article blurs the boundary between wrestling persona and real-world consequence, suggesting that grudges do not always end when the bell rings. Reflection replaces aggression in "Should Lou Thesz retire?" A street interview feature conducted in New York City. Random passersby are asked a single question, and the answers expose wrestling's uneven cultural footprint. Some insist Thesz should wrestle until he is defeated. Others argue that age alone should end his career. One respondent admits not knowing who Thesz is at all. The feature quietly punctures the myth of universal fame, reminding readers that even legends exist within bubbles. Cultural analysis deepens in wrestling's new breed. This article confronts an uncomfortable truth. Wrestling is changing because its audience is changing. Personality, appearance, and sex appeal are becoming central selling points. Wrestlers like Johnny Powers, Sonny Cooper, and Tony Manusos are positioned as examples of this evolution. The article argues explicitly that women are now the primary economic drivers of wrestling crowds, and promoters are responding accordingly. Johnny Powers' reported income, more than $50,000 annually, is not incidental. It is proof that this shift is profitable, regardless of traditionalist objections. Participation becomes literal and you write the captions. Readers are invited to caption photos of matches involving Bill Miller, Don Eagle, Buddy Rogers, Johnny Rougeau, Ed Carpentier, Hans Schmidt, Andre Bollé, Frank Valois, and Little Beaver with referee Maurice Lemon. This section reinforces the magazine's philosophy. Fans are not just observers, they are collaborators. Spectacle escalates in the night the wrestlers became boxers. A wrestling match in Atlanta involving Buddy Fuller and Mario Galento morphs into a scheduled 10-round boxing match with promoter Paul Jones and referee Rocky Marciano involved. The article explores how easily wrestling crosses into other combat sports when egos collide and promoters chase attention. Perseverance defines "they tried to gang up on me." Sonny Thomas. Midget wrestler Cowboy Sonny Thomas recounts hazing, injuries, and the fight for acceptance. His match with Chico Santana in Columbus, Georgia becomes a moment of validation. The article emphasizes survival over dominance, positioning resilience as a form of victory. Controversy peaks in Wynn's match, flat on his back. At Maple Leaf Gardens, whipper Billy Watson faces Gene Kiniski. Watson retains the title despite being pinned thanks to a missed foot on the rope call. Kiniski storms off with the belt. The article leans into the injustice, using it to illustrate how technicalities inflame rivalries and undermine trust. The feature section closes with an open letter to LBJ by Haystack Calhoun. Written in dialect, half satirical and half sincere, Calhoun proposes using wrestling exhibitions as a tool for world peace. It is absurd, earnest, and uniquely reflective of wrestling's belief in its own cultural power. Departments like Fan Club Circle, How They Rate, and Grapevine continue the conversation with rankings, gossip, and organized fandom, reinforcing wrestling as a community rather than a product. And now, the ads. Because in January 1966, the ads are inseparable from the message. A full-page ad for the new 1965 wrestling album offers pinups by mail for $1, promising ownership and intimacy with the sport. Isometrics exercise sets, priced at $8, sell strength and self-improvement, echoing the physique seen in the ring. Subscription ads urge commitment, framing wrestling as a long-term relationship. Back-issue order forms sell completeness and control over history. These ads do not interrupt the magazine's voice. They reinforce it. They sell the same dream the articles sell: belonging, improvement, and proximity to the action. Taken together, the January 1966 issue of Wrestling Illustrated is a magazine at war with complacency. It challenges promoters, exposes division, amplifies fan voices, and treats wrestling as something worth arguing about. It captures a business wrestling with its own identity long before television consolidation would simplify the narrative. If this issue sparked debate or brought memories flooding back, drop a comment with the section that hit you hardest. Like the video, "If Wrestling Magazines Shaped How You Learned the Business." Share it with someone who still argues finishes, and subscribe so we can keep turning these pages together. See you next time. Farewell from the Empire State.